I got some big news about Oshkosh that was finalized this morning. I want to share it with you in this video. And in the process of preparing for this pilgrimage to Aviation Mecca, I have a few final thoughts about flying into Oshkosh and the whole process that I want to share with you guys before the big week starts. Let's dive into it. I'm Josh, a pilot and flight instructor who loves the sky, sharing it with those around me and using it to see the world from a new perspective. Flying can seem super complex, but I make it my mission to promote safe practices while enjoying the beauty this world has to offer. Subscribe to climb into the cockpit on future adventures. This is Aviation 101.
0991 New Orleans, clear to the Foley Airport via as filed on departure maintain.
I just got word that it is finalized. It's a go. This airplane is going to be on display at the Garmin tent all week at Oshkosh. Front and center, right by Boeing Plaza on Celebration Way, where all the big aircraft manufacturers are. Come to the Garmin exhibit at some point. Take a look at the absolutely beautiful custom panel that's in this airplane. Definitely come by and say hi. I am gonna for sure be there for a meet and greet. Pull it up on my calendar here. Tuesday from 10:30 to 11:30 in the morning. That's gonna be a joint meet and greet at Garmin with Chris Palmer from Angle of Attack. We're both gonna be there. The airplane's gonna be there. I have a list of meet and greets on my website, aviation101.com/osh23. Let's see, there's a YouTuber meet and greet on Monday starting at 2:30. That's Forum Stage 9. Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. with the airplane and Chris Palmer. That's gonna be at the Garmin tent. On Thursday morning, Chelsea and I are a part of the Brews and Banter meet and greet. That's going to be at the Textron exhibit. Hangar 22 Coffee is going to be providing the coffee for that event, so come by, have some coffee, hang out, chat. And then Friday, 11 a.m. at the Flying Eyes tent, Chelsea and I are doing a meet and greet. And at 2 o'clock on Friday at the AOPA Program Pavilion, Chelsea and I are going to be in a forum about how to do social media content in aviation. Probably going to add more things to the schedule, but go to aviation101.com/osh23. Click the little add to calendar button, and whether you have an iPhone, an Android, Google Calendar, whatever you use, you can hit add to calendar, choose which one you use, and it will add that event to your calendar automatically. It's pretty sweet. Speaking of aviation101.com, on the e-store, I am still running a coupon code FLY2OSH. That'll get you 10% off your subtotal in your cart. Anything in the website counts. Get yourself a hat, shirt, coffee mug. On the trip up here yesterday, I used the IFR notepads like crazy. That coupon code is valid until August 1st. So all the way through the end of July, 10% off. Fly to Osh. Airventure is an absolute whirlwind of activity, both in the air and on the ground. The stats from 2022 returned, I think it was almost 10,000 airplanes operating in and out of that airport throughout the course of the week. That's insane. Now, I think there are some really important points to address when it comes to coming into Oshkosh, especially flying yourself. Chelsea and I are gonna be flying ourselves in this airplane into Airventure, but instead of taxiing to the camping area, we're gonna taxi to Boeing Plaza and get towed to the Garmin tent. That being said, I think there are a lot of little things to address, which I already covered my top 5 points about flying into Airventure in the previous video that I put out. Link to that video is down in the description. If you're flying into Oshkosh yourself, I highly recommend you go watch that video now if you haven't. I'm not gonna repeat those 5 points, but I asked for comments in that video, and I'm gonna address a couple of those comments that I thought were really, really good and were really worth highlighting and giving some attention to in this video. So in that previous video, I mentioned don't fly in rusty. You wanna be proficient. You don't wanna be already struggling to keep up with the airplane as it is. Somebody suggested down in the comments, which I thought was an awesome idea, on your way to Oshkosh, wherever your cross country is coming from, practice holding your speed and altitude over a ground reference, because that's what you're gonna have to do if you're doing, for example, the Fisk arrival. Pick a ground reference like a road, highway, interstate, whatever it may be. Hold a particular airspeed and hold a particular altitude directly over that ground reference. Just practice doing that while you're on a cross country. If you haven't done that exact exercise in a while, that can actually be harder than it sounds, especially when you have the craziness of the arrival. Another thing I want to add, I watched a couple of YouTube videos of some people doing the Fisk arrival. If the arrival calls for 90 knots, we're shooting for 90 knots indicated airspeed, not 90 knots true airspeed and not 90 knots ground speed. We want 90 knots indicated. I watched a couple videos where people were referencing wind changing their speed, so they have to compensate with power to maintain a certain ground speed on the arrival. Not your true airspeed, not your ground speed. Indicated airspeed. Read the NOTAM to find out what your appropriate airspeed and altitude is going to be for whatever arrival you're doing. I'm just using 90 knots as an example as one of the procedures that are in the NOTAM. I talked about practicing traffic patterns at your home airport. Use the 1,000-foot markers as your dot to kind of manage your energy and just get in the groove of doing a semi-spot landing and adjusting your aiming point. Don't forget, if you have the means available, practice right-hand traffic pattern, because if you're coming in for 2-7 at Oshkosh, you are going to be doing a right downwind, a right base, and making a right-hand turn on the final. You want to be proficient with your right-hand patterns too. And don't forget, throw a few short approaches in there. You may be asked to do a short approach landing at Oshkosh. Do not fly your airplane overweight. These airplanes are type certificated with certain certain limitations within the weight and balance envelope that are meant to be adhered to. There's a reason for that. The engineers that designed this thing are smarter than you, I promise. On 2 separate occasions, I've seen airplanes take off out of Oshkosh that barely cleared the freaking trees on the opposite end of the runway. That's where that hazardous mindset of if it fits, it ships comes in. And luckily they cleared the obstacles, but they just barely cleared the obstacles. Everyone was holding their breath. Anyways, don't fly overweight. Fly within the limits and the envelopes for your aircraft. I think it's a healthy reminder to consider that you are the pilot in command of your aircraft. You are in charge of flying your aircraft. You have the final say of what goes on in your aircraft to maintain safety of flight. On your way in on the arrival as pilot in command, you are still responsible for see and avoid operation. If you see traffic and it looks like it's going to be a conflict for you, take evasive action. Do what you need to do to remain clear of all traffic and avoid a collision. Just because you're doing what you're supposed to do and you're following the rules does not mean everybody else is going to follow the rules. And if somebody is getting in your lane or getting in your way, you as PIC are responsible to take action. Don't forget about see and avoid. Use ADS-B to help spot traffic and keep your situational awareness intact. We have all the traffic displays on this beautiful Garmin panel. We're also going to have ForeFlight up with all the traffic right in front of us. We're going to have no shortage of situational awareness, not to mention 2 pilots, Chelsea and I. Keep your head on the swivel, look for traffic, and for the love of God, clean your windshield. Use code AVIATION101 for 10% off. It's very hard to spot traffic through a screen of bugs and you're bouncing around and you can't tell what's a bug and what's an airplane. So somebody left this comment on the previous video and I honestly couldn't agree with it more. I want to share it here. Make your last fuel stop on your way to Oshkosh within 1 hour of Oshkosh. This way you can just top off your airplane, you can regroup on the ground, read over the NOTAM one time, call the ATIS phone number and listen to it, listen to the status of the airport, and look on ForeFlight at the traffic flows. You can get a good idea ahead of time of where the arrival is beginning, what's the traffic look like. If there are a bunch of airplanes circling the lakes, there's probably high congestion or an incident happened at the airport and it's temporarily closed. You can more effectively prepare your backup plan. Have some alternate airports in mind like Appleton, Fond du Lac, or just bail out of the area and go somewhere else if it really gets hairy coming into Oshkosh. Make sure you have plenty of fuel. You might have to come back around and do the arrival again if there is some sort of a spacing issue, or if the airport closes, you might have to hold for an hour. This is a really simple one, but it's really inconvenient if you don't do this. Have your signs ready to go when you land at the airport. The sign that you hold up in big bold letters that says GAC, General Aviation Camping, or GAP, General Aviation Parking. That way the ground marshalers can see your bold sign that you're holding up in the windshield, and they know where to marshal you to. The NOTAM says this very clearly. Do not take your iPad and write on it what you want and then hold it up to the window. They cannot read that. It needs to be on white paper, black letters. If you're flying solo, make sure it's sitting on the seat next to you so that when you land and you roll off the runway, you can literally just blindly grab it off the seat and hold it up. Next up, park your plane, secure it, and have a fantastic time. Once again, this airplane is going to be on display at the Garmin exhibit, the big Garmin tent right there by Boeing Plaza on Celebration Way. Pretty much show center. I'm super excited that this airplane is going to be showcased right in front of one of my awesome sponsors' exhibits. I'll be having a meet and greet there on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. with Chris Palmer from Angle of Attack. My whole meet and greet schedule is on aviation101.com/OSH23. Link to that is down in the description. Don't forget to use that 10% off coupon code on everything in the e-store. Fly to OSH. It's good until August 1st. And until next time, you know the drill. I want you to stay happy, healthy, current, but most importantly, stay proficient. Go out, beat up the pattern, practice your spot landings, do some short approaches, all that good stuff, and we'll see you in Oshkosh. Fly safe.